All right, we ready? It is 6:30 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. While this meeting is being held in person in consideration of the ongoing COVID-19 health concerns, we are offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in this meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you're a part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand to stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, please be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the admin offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into our agenda. We have one public presentation this evening, which is the preliminary plat for the Mission Preserve located at West 51st and Riggs Street. Mr. Scott, would you please provide your report?
Okay with you, I'm going to take off my mask so be a little bit more succinct. The Planning Commission met this past Monday evening. There were 4 items on the agenda, 2 of which were public hearings. One was a public hearing for the preliminary development plan for a multifamily residential development for adults 55 and plus in age, to be known as Mission Preserve. And then the second hearing was a preliminary plat for the same development project. This development project is located at 51 West 51st Street, excuse me, between Riggs Street and Fox Ridge. So it's approximately at the corner, the southwest corner of Riggs and West 51st Street. The two don't actually intersect, but it's kind of right in that area. So the property is a 9.6 acre undeveloped parcel, and it's zoned currently RP5 Planned Senior Adult Residential District. The zoning is designated to, is intended to provide housing opportunities for independent seniors age 55 and older and assisted living and skilled nursing facilities. This project is just strictly a multifamily housing project for those that are 55 and older in age. There are no assisted living facilities or nursing care facilities associated with this project. So it's really kind of geared for those that are older that still have an independent, active living style and are just seeking a housing opportunity that's more in line with their choice of housing opportunities. I'm not going to read through the staff report tonight. I'll say that agony for next week when I present this to the full city council, the regular meeting. Suffice to say, we did have some residents at the meeting on Monday evening. I think we probably had about a dozen residents. Quite a few were from Apollo Gardens. We had 4 that actually spoke to the project. Their primary concern was traffic. So the Planning Commission at the end of the night approved the preliminary development plan 7-1. There was 1 commissioner who was absent. And they added an additional stipulation that the revised traffic study be done and submitted with the final plan when that's presented back to the Planning Commission. And what they're wanting with that additional traffic study is just kind of expand the scope of the study to look at Riggs north of 51st Street. That was kind of the concern that people were expressing, was the difficulty of being able to get out of Apollo Gardens and those townhomes to the north, going down Riggs southbound and then turning either way onto West 51st Street. So they wanted to examine that set of movements as well as the movements at West 51st and Lamar and West 51st and Fox Ridge. So we kind of look at that entire corridor. So we've talked with the developer about that. He's amenable to doing that, but it's just going to take a little bit of time to get that study done. But we'll submit that when he submits the final development plan, which I imagine will probably be sometime early this summer. So, there are a number of other stipulations in the staff report. Nothing really out of line with what we've done with other projects. And like I say, this will be presented for your consideration next Wednesday evening. At that time, there'll be an opportunity for anybody from the public to make comment and for you all to ask questions. The applicant will be here as well. So you can ask questions of the applicant as well as staff. And then kind of in conjunction with that was a preliminary plat. That was also approved by the planning commission 7-1. And there's really nothing out of the ordinary with that. We did have some conditions with the preliminary plat regarding specifically some language, and in particular, drafting of a legal description and dedication of some right of way. So you can see on your screen a site plan for the proposed development. And the site has kind of an odd shape. So at the very northwest corner, it forms a perfect 90-degree angle. But if you go to the east, basically where that, approximately intersects, West 51st Street intersects with Riggs, there's a 45-degree angle to the property, and it actually crosses over Riggs. So Riggs southbound of West 51st Street kind of dead ends just before it gets to West 51st Street, and there's a turnaround area there. And all of that's actually in the proposed development property.
Brian, do you have a laser pointer you could point to where the streets are? It's hard from here to see.
We don't have a laser pointer, do we?
Oh, okay.
So Brian, what you're talking about is that little corner, right, on the right-hand side of the screen?
Right. Yeah, I can't get the pointer to work here, but it's essentially that corner on the right side of the screen on the east side of the property line. Yeah,
Okay, so Apollo is north of that.
right. So Apollo's on the top.
Mm.
51st Street runs right across the top of the screen here, and Apollo's above that.
Got it.
And then Riggs is that set of lines kind of on the right side of the screen. You see those little squares, those are houses.
Uh-huh.
And Riggs goes to the north and it kind of dead ends before it gets to West 51st Street. And that little half shape there, it's a turnaround area. But you can see where it's actually in the property of the proposed development. So that property line actually crosses over Riggs and it slices through somebody's front yard.
Okay, where does Lincolnshire pick up? Up past the shaded area?
I think Lincolnshire
It's to the
is,
east, isn't it?
yeah, further to the east, yeah. Yeah, Lamar would be to the east as well. So it'd be further to the right on the screen.
Brian?
Yeah.
Does the city have an easement for rigs there, or is that, where it is actually invading the property line?
I don't think there's any easement or anything right now for that. So we're asking the developer to do is just to dedicate that turnaround area to the city. And that requires drafting some legal description, some legal language to describe that turnaround area that can be added to the plat.
Okay,
And then we're also asking the developer just to slice off that very tip and just give it in fee simple to the gentleman that owns that property, so that he doesn't have any issues down the road when he's trying to sell his property.
good.
So that,
Okay, so they're amenable to doing that?
yeah,
Nice.
and that'll be a condition that's submitted in the final plat.
Can you talk a little bit about the dissenting vote? What was the issue on both those
I'm sorry.
The planning commission dissenting vote, can you talk a little bit about why that dissenting vote was held?
It was Commissioner Torpedo was the dissent
Okay.
voter, and I can't really specifically speak as to why he voted no. I know that one of the folks that spoke expressed concern about keeping the green space and the wildlife area, and that was a concern of his. He was sympathetic to that.
But he voted against the plat as well?
Yeah, he voted against the plat. He didn't specify why specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, could you just reiterate, where are the utility lines in proximity to this property?
So the utility lines run along the north side of the property, right along West 51st Street.
Okay. Are they buried?
No, they're overhead. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions about that? Both of those items will be on the agenda for next week.
Is that everything, Brian?
Those two items, yes.
Thank you. We will move into our action items now. There are 9 tonight, and the first one is also with Brian about the Rock Creek Pump Station at 5701 Rowe Avenue.
Okay, the third item that was on the agenda for the planning commission meeting on Monday night was the final plat for the Rock Creek Pump Station at 5701 Rowe Avenue. You all will recall that we brought to you back in September, October, late summer, early fall, a rezoning, a preliminary development plan, a preliminary plat, and a special use permit for the pump station at this location. That pump station is actually sitting in right of way that's owned by the Kansas Department of Transportation. And Johnson County Wastewater is planning to essentially demolish the existing pump station that's been there for 60 years and construct a new, bigger pump station that'll be able to handle some additional capacity and will allow them to be able to do the improvements that need to be done in Nelson in a couple of years. And so they wanted to buy the property from KDOT just to have better control over that property. So that was kind of the reasoning for the plat. All of those items were approved by the city council back in September, October. We brought this to you, and we're now presenting the final plat. And normally this would just be an approval by the planning commission, but we got a little bit of a one-off here. Anytime a final plat provides a dedication of an easement or right-of-way to the city, that has to be approved by the city council. So in this particular plat, I will go over here and point to the screen. It might be easier to do it that way. There is a large drainage easement that goes through the north side of the plat. That's where the Rock Creek storm channel comes out of the gateway property underneath Rowe, the daylights, and kind of goes to the east into Fairway and eventually into Mission Hills. And then there's another drainage easement kind of midway in the property. There's some underground stormwater infrastructure there. So that is all being dedicated to the city, and that requires city council approval and acceptance. So that's a pretty perfunctory process, and that's why I would ask that it be put on consent agenda. So it's pretty easy to do.
Is the city then responsible for maintaining that underground
Yeah,
storm drain and
right. And that's,
keeping it cleared?
and that's what the language in the plat allows the city to be able to go on to that property to do any maintenance or new construction of new facilities or whatever needs to be done within that easement. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend we take this to council and do it on consent.
Consent? Is everyone all right with consent?
Okay, one quick question.
Yeah, go ahead. Dave.
Brian, is that property that you just kind of identified, is that a stormwater collection point?
This whole property or just,
No, just toward the bottom. You said it was a stormwater, it looked like a collection.
no, there's a storm sewer that underground that comes in from the Gateway site.
Okay,
And it kind of angles a little bit and eventually goes to the Rock Creek where it drains. Then there's another one from the south that comes up and hits that,
okay,
that connection point there.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I think we'll go ahead and put this on consent, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have the acceptance of the meeting minutes from the February 2nd, 2022 Community Development Committee with Audrey McClanahan.
Thank you. These are the February 2nd Community Development Committee minutes for your review, please.
Any recommendations?
Recommend acceptance.
Okay, great. We'll put those on consent. Next, we'll have the street preservation, 2022 street preservation project, the first of two items from Celia Duran.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The 2022 Street Preservation Project includes 3 streets, 62nd from Lamar to Woodson, Outlook from 49th to 51st, and Reed's from 49th to 50th Street. These streets are all full depth reconstruction, meaning that they don't have adequate asphalt. So we're taking it down to the subgrade and adding in a base and then 8 inches of asphalt. We're removing all the curb and gutter and the driveway approaches in the right of way, and then doing some stormwater improvements and repairs. So it's going to be, you know, a pretty extensive construction, but once it's done, it's going to be looking really nice. So we bid the project in January. We had 4 bids, and Miles Excavating came in as the lowest and most responsible bidder. And we're really excited about the price. I was really worried about inflation and how it was going to come in, but we got a really good price on it. So we would recommend approval. The construction should begin. We don't have it quite narrowed down yet, but probably mid to late April, maybe May. And construction will last about 150 days. And we're still working with the contractor to figure out where they're starting and what their sequence of work is. We're also going to be, we have a website, but we're really going to try to make it a little more robust this year to kind of keep it updated with information for the residents so that, you know, hey, we're doing 62nd. Nope, we're going here. So they can look at it, and then we'll have contact information as well. So now that we have the construction costs, we're looking at, you know, what money do we have for 2023? So we already have 3 streets that are 60% designed, and looking at what other funds that we can use to add in some additional streets. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
So with I know that the 3 that are, those are designed, right? We spent this year designing all 6. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well.
I think we spent this year designing all 6. Is that correct?
Last year.
Last year.
So we
sorry.
designed the year
Right,
before
correct.
for the next year.
So these 3 that are not being part of the project, were they already scheduled for 2023
Yes.
as part of the plan?
Yes.
What about 61st Terrace from Woodson to Lamar?
Well, I'm hoping that we can get that one in as well. Right now, I'm asking Olson to give us, you know, now based on our new prices that we've got from the bid, to go ahead and estimate that cost to see if we can fit that one in too, because we, Brent and I drove around. That's one of the worst streets in the city. So,
Right.
but it's an expensive street. It has
Right.
stormwater work and it's really long, but we're hoping to be able to get that one in and see what else we have.
Also on 62nd Street, that's going to be done this year, right?
Yes.
There's a storm sewer, is that right? That goes across 62nd. Water One was digging there and I guess have interrupted the entire street. Is that, they're going to put their line beneath it? Is that accurate?
They're doing some relocations there. Do you recall what
Go
they're
ahead, Brent.
doing?
So that's what Water One was doing today? Okay.
So, and all the utilities, we've met with them and, you know, a lot of them are out on Outlook and Reads and a little bit of work on 62nd, trying to go ahead and replace all their infrastructure so they don't have to tear up the road. So you see a lot of going on right now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Celia.
Hi.
I have a couple of questions. Well, first, a comment. Neighbors are very excited in Walnut View about getting those two streets taken care of. So thank you for that.
Good.
I did just have a comment as staff evaluates additional streets for design. 55th Street, everybody knows. 55th. I know we'll talk more about it in the budget process, but 55th Street is, other than Ken's 61st Terrace, Woodson to Lamar, which I drove today, is horrible. I would say 55th Street is the worst. And then I'm also concerned about Mission Preserve going in that stretch of 51st. And so I was just wondering if we have an update on cars and where that fits into the timeline. Again, I know we're going to talk about that later. So that's not even an answer or a question. It's just a comment. Second comment or more of a question related to the budget. What was the $2 million that we had planned to earmark for residential streets?
Yes.
Okay, so the 1.6 that we have here, was the other 4 in design and other costs?
Yeah. So, so every year it's construction, design inspection, and then design inspection and design for next year.
Mhm.
So since we're already ahead of design, so we'll look at 1.6 that we're spending here, plus the construction inspection. Then we have a little bit more that we may want to we'll throw towards design. So hopefully we can get in more streets in 2023. So it's
Sure.
always rolling forward, trying to, you know, do as much
Sure.
as we can.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I remember we didn't do any projects in 2021, correct?
No, we
Any
did.
street projects?
We
Or
did
was it
3,
2020?
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
And so there was kind of a lump sum left over from 2020 that was going to roll over
And that was all used for 2021.
for 2021. Okay, interesting.
And quickly on the
Yeah.
55th Street. So what we're trying to do on are you talking about the east side or west side or both of them?
I'm talking about the stretch between Roland Park and Lamar.
So that's a cars route. So we're trying to fit it into cars. And then the west side where the development's going in, we're trying to get that to become cars, but it's based on the number of vehicles and we don't have it yet, but we're going to try to petition to the county. So we're trying to work that in. We know that those stretches are really bad. So we're constantly trying to look at, you know, what streets are bad. You know, we have that draft plan, but you know, what has changed and what can we move up? And so it's a constant evaluation to see, you know, what streets are really were impacted by the winter and should we move some up? And,
Mhm.
you know, it's a shuffling thing.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you. And just one final comment, and Laura and the mayor know this well, but I'd really like to see us be able to provide one street with ARPA funding if possible. And I know that we plan to use most of ARPA potentially for closing budget gaps, but I would really like to see us, you know, have that deliverable to the public to say, you know, we couldn't do anything in 2020 because of the pandemic, but here we came back and utilized federal funds to help deliver on something later. I think that would be a really nice thing to be able to accomplish.
And, you know, I would be supportive of that.
I know you would be. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Laura's planning a work session on streets and different financing, I think the end of March, but so hopefully that all of that will be discussed at that time. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Do you have more comment? I would go ahead and recommend that we take this to regular agenda.
Non-consent,
Yes, not consent.
non-consent, regular agenda. You want to also stay up there, Celia, for the next one? It's the street preservation project.
So as part of the 2022 street project that we just talked about, we're recommending approval of a contract with Pfefferkorn Engineering and Environmental LLC for part-time construction inspection. They performed inspection for our 2021 projects in Lamar, and they did a great job, and they're very cost effective. This year, we did ask for costs from our on-call engineers, which are GBA and Olson. And then Caw Valley called us and said, can I submit a cost? So, you know, we like to look at qualifications, but we also want to have as much money as we can for streets. So we had them submit prices, and Peppercorn has the qualifications, and they were the lowest cost. So we'd recommend approval of Peppercorn for part-time inspection.
Recommend that we take that to consent.
Everyone all right with consent on that? All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Celia.
Thank you.
And Celia, I would just say that the copy I have shows May or June of 2021. So you might check that.
Well, yeah. That's not the case, obviously. Sorry about that. Thank you.
I think that's PDF page 47, right above the CFAA considerations, just if that's helpful.
Okay.
I think our next item is from Brent Morton, Streetlight Maintenance Contract.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me? So this is our streetlight maintenance contract. It's all the streetlights throughout town, including our decorative poles, along with our Cobra heads and just all through the residential areas. We purchased our streetlights from KCP&L back in 2013. A lot of municipalities were starting to do that. KCP&L was making that an option. So big cost savings to the city. I know some other cities that are trying to work through that now that didn't take advantage of that back in 2013, and the cost has gone up tremendously. I think Evergy now, I guess, figured out they were making a lot of money on streetlights, so they've upped that cost. So that was definitely a good move on the city's part. When they maintained them, we just called Evergy or KCP&L at the time. They'd come out and fix them and take care of it at that. Once we purchased all the streetlights, we really don't have the personnel or the equipment or the technicians to maintain infrastructure like that. Bucket trucks are needed, linemen, and a lot of our stuff's direct bury. So you got to be qualified to work on direct bury power. And, you know, if we have something big go out like a transformer, there's only 3 contractors that Evergy will let do this kind of work without having them on site to work on that high voltage direct bury or transformers. So Black McDonald is one of those contractors. So that kind of limited the bidders on this. I know some of the bigger guys pulled the RFQ, but we ended up with just one bidder, Black McDonald. And they've done this work for us since 2013, and they're also a sub to Evergy. So even if there's stuff in town that Evergy still owns some of our traffic signals we lease, you'll still see them out there doing that work because they're a sub to Evergy as well. So they really work well together. We haven't had an issue with them since we've been working with Black McDonald. Response time's good. They know our infrastructure, and I think that's what makes them the most competitive bidder. When we purchased the lights, we had 846. We are now at 111, and we got that a little more dialed in this year with the LED program going around town. Figured out we had a few more lights we weren't aware of and got the GIS software all updated. So our lights went up, but a lot of that's Johnson Drive. You know, we got pedestrian lights and street lights. Those are dual headlights, which they count as 2. At the development projects, you know, Broadmoor, Fox Ridge, we added street lights. So that number's just gone up since 2013. So we kind of got that dialed in now. I don't see it going much farther than that in the future. I mean, we might add a few here and there, but basically it'd be spacing issues and just, you know, making everything more user-friendly on the streets. So we're recommending going with Black McDonald at a cost of $55,372.47. This is, the contract would expire at the end of the year. We renew it every year. They have the option to increase the price 3%. That's a max. They've only done that twice since I've been here. So they really work with us well. And usually it's material cost or something like that, where they just can't maintain the cost that they've been doing business with us. So I feel it's a good fit, good response. They do night patrols. And I've been happy with their service. I think it's one of the better ones we got for on-call service. And this comes out of the contract services of the Public Works budget. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Brent? Right. I recommend taking it to consent.
Consent, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brent.
Thanks, Brent.
Mr. Almany has the next two items. The first one is the tree plan from the Parks, Recreation, and Tree Commission.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chapter 230 of the Mission Municipal Code dictates that on even number of years, the Park Recreation and Tree Commission review the tree plan and make any recommended updates or revisions. And that occurred during the February 21st Park Recreation and Tree Commission meeting. They proposed a few recommended revisions, one of which encompasses date, punctuation, spacing. There's another paragraph largely that adds clarity around city personnel and who should receive training. And then adding resilience kind of throughout the document, since that's a common theme in all of the Arbor Day emphasis. So as part of this process, we reach out to the Kansas Forest Service and ask them for any updates to the diseased or prohibited trees. They are not recommending any additional trees be excluded from the list this year. They have recommended that we try to diversify our tree species in our parks, as well as create an educational campaign and make sure that we are documenting the condition and diameter of trees when inventorying them. And so we'll take those recommendations and implement them this year as we build towards a more robust growth award program. So this is a mandatory requirement for our Tree City USA designation as well. So staff is recommending that you approve the proposed revisions to the City of Mission's tree plan as set forth in Chapter 230 of the Mission Municipal Code. Any questions?
Yeah, Hillary, then Ken.
Hi, Penn.
Hello.
I was just wondering if the PRT Commission has submitted their budget recommendations to the city administrator per the tree plan interface with governing body and city staff.
So that will occur during next month's Park Recreation and Tree Commission meeting. We touched upon the budget process a little bit, and then we'll continue that process.
Okay, so I was just wondering, because it says annually by April 1st, the budget. I didn't know if that needed to change or just, it should just say annually.
Yeah, that's great. I think we'll hit the April 1st number because it'll be during the March meeting. So we'll make sure that we address that and get a recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Penn.
You bet.
Hi, Penn.
Hello.
The inventory last was done March of 2018, is that correct? Is that what is indicated in the report, the park and green space?
So that is
forestry?
a citywide inventory that was last done 2018.
Okay.
We do an annual updated inventory on all the parks.
Okay, so the recommendation that we keep track of the dimension and so on, is that all something that's ongoing right now?
Correct. Yeah, so the prior to my coming, any tree that's been planted in the last 2.5 years, the diameter tree species has been inventoried. Prior to that, those diameter and conditions weren't necessarily accurate. And so it falls on us just to make sure that if it was in poor condition 2 years ago, that we're updating that in our inventory system.
Okay. I also noticed that the majority of our trees, according to the inventory, are white ash. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a lot of trees that were inventoried in 2018 were white ash.
And are those the ones that are subject to the ash borer
Correct.
disease? Did they have any comments about that?
Yeah, generally speaking, replace those as soon as possible. We're pretty lucky. Most of our ash trees haven't been hit really hard. There are certain groupings that we take care of pretty quickly, but it hasn't spread as quickly as they had thought.
Okay,
So our plan is, as soon as we notice it, is to remove it and replace it with a viable species as soon as possible.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions for Penn?
Recommend that we take this to non-consent.
Okay, regular agenda for this one. Thank you very much, Pin. Next is the agreement for the super pool pass. If you want to speak to that one as well, please.
You,
Or would you? Yeah, sorry.
so Mission has participated in the Super Pool Pass program since 2009, with the exception of the most recent 2 years. This program offers residents and non-residents the ability to not only participate in swimming here in Mission, but also in other communities that participate in this Super Pool Pass program. So if you purchase a membership here in Mission, you can purchase the pool pass and then visit other municipalities' pool throughout the course of the year. So they track that and tally it throughout the course of the summer. We take half of the revenue from the pass sales, essentially submit half of the remaining revenue to them, and then that's divided among each of the municipalities based off of usage. And so through this program, we've generated some additional revenue that's totaled $68,141 over the last 13 years. The most recent year, 2019, we actually brought in 15,000 of that. So we're hoping that trend continues this summer. Obviously, we didn't participate last year. But in order to participate in the program, each of the cities executes an interlocal agreement and a letter of understanding. And our legal team has reviewed those documents and does not have any problems with us entering that agreement. So one thing that's worth mentioning is that Fairway, Leawood, Mission, Prairie Village, Roland Park are participating in that. Merriam and Johnson County Parks and Recreation District opted out this year. Johnson County typically operated Roland Park's pool in the past. So Merriam is really the one that's kind of out of the program this year. So staff is recommending the approval of the interlocal agreement and letter of understanding, which allows Mission to participate in the Super Pool Pass 2022 season. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Penn? I recommend consent.
Yes,
If that's all
absolutely.
right. Okay, consent.
Thank you.
Penn. The ninth item is an amendment to the solid waste collection contract from WCA with Brian again.
Find it here. So the city of Mission entered into a solid waste collection agreement with WCA in January of October 2019, effective January 2020. And the section 2.7 of that agreement stipulates collection schedules and routes. Subsection B specifies holiday collection schedule, and that states the contractor shall observe the Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Day holidays. Materials will be collected one day later for those areas of the city with a scheduled collection day on after the holiday. Last year, WCA submitted a request to us for allowing their employees to take Independence Day off, which we agreed to. And then they submitted a letter this year asking that that be made a permanent part of the contract be amended to allow for Independence Day. So it would be treated like the other holidays, where if a collection were to occur in that day, it would just be the following day. So that's it in a nutshell.
Recommend consent.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brian.
Thank
Can
you.
I ask a quick question, Brian? Okay, is there any contingency that needs to be placed in here if the next day falls on a Saturday?
Well, they'd be collecting on a Saturday, yeah. So if the holiday's on Friday,
Right?
they would collect on a Saturday or.
Do they normally collect on Saturday?
Yeah, that's, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
The final action item this evening is the bid for on-site water service for improvements to the Mission Market site from Emily Randall.
Oh, thank you. Some of you will recall that for the 2022 budget season, last year we discussed adding a supplemental budget item for some infrastructure upgrades for the Mission Market site at Johnson Drive and Reed's. And that was to accomplish a few infrastructure improvements that we really feel we need with the current setup of the market, but that will also benefit users of our Rock Creek Trail and the downtown area generally, even when the market is not in session, so to speak. So we have the $30,000 that was budgeted, and our kind of top list items were kind of three parts. Well, two parts exactly. One was to bring water services to the site. Currently that we were bringing gallon jugs down for our water fountain for patrons prior to the pandemic. But any other water use we needed for even a dog dish, we brought in off the site, or Public Works helped us with the water truck and a makeshift cistern down there. So that was really number one. Public Works has helped a great deal in creating these bids. Finding contractors who would bid it for us to bring water service off of the main line down there, pour a proper pad and drainage facilities to do it the way that one should do, and also provide a spigot that would provide kind of general water, and then also the application of a water fountain. We felt it was important and a nice feature to have the type of fountain that has water bottle filler and as well as a dog dish. We have a lot of canine friends who visit us at the market, and so that will be, I think, a really big benefit and another feature for the Rock Creek Trail, in addition to the bike maintenance station that's currently installed down there. So that will be great. But in order to do it, there's a lot of underground work and site prep and concrete pad pouring and such. And so those are the numbers that you see for that piece of this work. So of the three bids we received, we're recommending MMC contractors in an amount not to exceed $23,212 for the site work to do that portion. The water fountain itself, another piece of pretty substantial equipment that we'll be adding to our asset inventory. We found the price with Global Industrial of slightly more than $9,000 that actually shipped prior to expectations. And Brent Morton just shared with me that it's arrived, which was a great relief, because with shipping delays that we experienced last year, I was very nervous that we would still not hit it, but we have it in our possession, which is wonderful news. So that piece of the total is represented by the fountain costs. And then, as you know, if you've been to the market, we have a really wonderful asset in the power box that's at the back of the site that feeds power for various things, including the tree at the holiday times and the musicians, et cetera. Some of our vendors at the market have use for power. And at this time, they are using extension cords that drag across the entire site, which is not ideal for anyone, and also for safety. And again, Public Works helped a great deal to figure out that we could extend the capacity of the streetlight poles that are in that area with outlets that can serve the vendors. They'll be locked when not in use, so that'll be under our jurisdiction, so to speak, but the vendors will, I think, really enjoy having that amenity for the sites, and it will be throughout the market area. So the 9 poles that are across the whole section that we're currently using. Yes.
Where will the water fountain be located?
Very near the bike station. So at the Rock Creek Trail towards the back of the site, where, if you're familiar.
Very good.
Any other questions for Emily? Yeah, Ben?
You know where so it says excavate to the main. Do you know where the main is? Is it along Johnson Drive?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Are they going to have to be digging up sidewalk and trail and stuff like that?
So I'll repeat that for the microphone benefit. So there is a panel of the trail that needs to come out, and they'll pour another pad for the water fountain. The main that they're pulling from is from Reed's. So they'll be kind of offsite, not on Johnson Drive.
And so those are the 2 10x10 sections in the bid?
Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Recommend consent.
Everyone all right with consent on this?
I'm all right with consent, but there's like the super pool pass and this that are applicable to the public at large, I think ought to be brought up, even though it's not a voting issue. Does that make sense? It's good to know.
Yeah.
Would you like to put this one on the regular agenda then?
I would.
Okay,
Thanks.
let's put this one on the regular agenda. Looking forward to another mission market season.
Very excited. Thank you.
All right, there are no discussion items this evening. Brian, are there any department updates for the Community Development Committee?
Can I ask a question of Public Works?
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Can you tell me, this is for Celia or Brent, the salt that we use this year for the sidewalks, there seems to be a lot of salt on the sidewalks throughout the city. What is the approach to that in terms of trying to, I guess, sweep or remove and not allow it to wash into areas?
Well, we actually, the mayor sent an email that we need to respond to from residents, but as far as talking about the salt, we talked about, this was a perfect storm, why we had so much salt, because we had the big snow the week before, and then it never rained. And so you had some of that salt. And then the storm, I know I'm kind of going around your question, but then the storm last week with the really cold weather, and then it snowed, and then it came again, we had to put more salt down to make sure that, we're melting it as much as we can. Otherwise it was going to be icy. So it's difficult to limit the salt when we're also trying to make the streets safe. So, it's going to rain this week, and I know that's probably not the best way, but right now we don't really have plans. I mean, for us to try to go clean off every single street and every single sidewalk, we couldn't do, but we're always evaluating what we do. And I just talked to Brent, and we're going to talk about, is there any way we can limit the salt? But we just have to make sure that we're protecting the street. And so sometimes there's going to be more salt depending on the conditions. I know I'm not sure that answered your question, but I just wanted to give that
I just wanted
background.
to point out that the city sidewalks in front of City Hall and also some of the trails have quite a bit of salt remaining on them.
Yeah.
So those are the areas that I was wondering, not all of the city.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking the ones that are the city's responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over, actually. I don't know what we can do. We'll talk about that and see if we can come up with some plan, if there's any cost-effective way to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Celia. It is now 7:18 PM, and with no further discussion, that concludes this meeting of the Community Development Committee. Again, this video will be made public on our website at missionks.org. Thank you. I will now pass it over to the chairwoman for the Finance and Administration Committee.
Thanks, Trent. Does anybody need a 5-minute break, or are you okay to proceed? Everybody okay? Okay. It is now 7:19 PM, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order. Tonight, we have a revised agenda to include an updated MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with Johnson County Mental Health, providing better clarification on the addition of the second co-responder under the police department. Do I have a motion to revise the agenda?
Madam Chair, I recommend that we approve the March 2nd revised Finance and Administration Committee agenda as printed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Audrey, please call the vote.
Thomas. Loudon. Reinhardt.
Aye.
Kring.
Aye.
Chosy.
Aye.
Boltinghouse.
Aye.
And Davis.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Audrey. The meeting tonight is being held in person, but in consideration of the ongoing COVID-19 health concerns, we are offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom, if preferred. Instructions on how to attend virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. The public is also invited to participate in the meeting. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand, but stay seated and we will call on you to go to the lectern to make your comment. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also, be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the city's website at missionks.org. Please contact the administration offices at 913-676-8350 with any questions or concerns. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment now? Seeing none, we'll move into public presentations. We don't have any this evening, so we'll go to our 5 action items. The first action item is the acceptance of the meeting minutes from Audrey McClanahan.
Thank you. These are the February 2nd, 2022 Finance and Administration Committee minutes for your review, please.
Do you have a motion to accept the minutes
Yeah, go
And a
ahead
s-
and accept.
and a second?
It's just an acceptance.
Acceptance. The second is the upgrade to access control and camera systems, and that would be Dan Madden, our police chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This action item is to replace a deteriorated access control system that has caused us some issues. We can no longer get replacement parts for it. So we've really have been in a bind a few times. On top of that, what that does is that controls all of the entry into our facilities. Currently, the City Hall, the Police Department, and Public Works is on that system. This would add this facility into that system, which we feel provides some consistency and allows us some more flexibility with safety, as well as, key management issues that are always a concern. In addition, this project will move the equipment from a storage closet essentially into the climate controlled server room with the rest of that type of equipment, which will hopefully allow for additional years of service. We will add 3 doors here, and then when the Public Works gate is installed, it will also be added into that system. In addition, the security camera system software has been kind of a thorn in our side at some points. That was installed in 2018. Shortly after that was installed, the vendor that we used sold to a different company, and we have received very poor support. With this project, this would add the access control system and the security camera system into one module. So everything's working together. There's not a lot of added cost to doing that because we would have needed to buy the server for the access control anyway. And they're not replacing any of the door hardware that we currently have. So we'll be able to reuse all of the current door hardware, magnetic locks and card readers. In addition, it will expand our capacity for security cameras if we so desire, and also allow us to the term they use is federate into Operation Green Light cameras, and some of the other cities, most of the other cities use the same platform, and it will allow us, if requested, we could potentially bring in some traffic cameras from nearby that will aid us in some of our common intersections should there be an accident or any other purpose that we would need to review that. Initially, the budget was set at $45,000. Once we refreshed the bid, that was determined that we wouldn't need a new server to handle this. And so that's why you see the increase in the cost. That's a lot more than the original budget. But we also we contacted 3 companies. We got bids from 2 of the 3. Our current vendor that we haven't had good luck with did not provide a bid. So, and the second bid was for almost double the cost of what this is. So staff has recommended that we contract with Electronic Technology Incorporated to install access control system upgrades and security camera software upgrades. So do you have any questions about that?
Go ahead, Ben.
So these cameras, is this, I'm not familiar with the system. Is it pretty good quality, high resolution type of video or?
It's all kind of depends on the location where it's at. You know, we have some of our cameras are kind of a wide angle, long range cameras. So we're just getting kind of general surveillance images from those, while others capture some pretty good.
Okay.
video.
And I see there's a new storage server involved in the price. Do we have some idea how long would we be able to retain footage with that?
Well, our current retention policy is 30 days.
Okay, and that's gonna work just fine with this new server?
Yes, the access control software it maintains logs, but those are small file sizes, so that it will still allow for it. We still would have the capacity to add 25 cameras.
Right.
Still fall within our capacity limit or storage limit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ken, did you have something
No, I just would recommend that we take this to consent.
to consent? Is everybody okay with consent? Do you have a second? The next item is the mental health co-responder memorandum of understanding, and that would be Chief Madden as well.
Thank you. We have not updated our memorandum of understanding with Johnson County and the other cities that we share co-responder services with for some time. With the addition of the second co-responder, the county sent proposed memorandum of understanding, and there were some areas that weren't clear with the addition of the second co-responder, and that was initially done intentionally because there were so many factors and unknowns about the 2022 project year, since there was a grant funds received, and also not knowing whether the other cities were going to participate with the second co-responder at the time and still today. So we were able to get the clarification added in the addendum section that spells out how exactly we're handling the expenditures for the 2022 year. And then we will, once we have some clarity on the issues of who's in and who's out for the second co-responder, we'll be able to adjust that for the next budget year as well.
Does that complete your report?
Yes,
Does
yes.
anybody have questions about the mental health responder? Hillary?
Hi, Chief.
Hi.
I felt a little confused as I kind of read through this, and maybe it's because, as the reasons you just pointed out, but I just felt a little confused. So to be clear, all these cities share one co-responder, and there's a second co-responder that we intended to share just with Merriam. And now other cities are also using it, but Merriam's grant is covering the entire cost of it, of the person.
Merriam's grant will cover the majority of because of the way the fiscal year works in the federal side.
Mhm.
We'll miss out on a few months because of the expiration of the grant. The original intent was to have two co-responders that all of the cities shared the expense with. However, the addition of the second co-responder came very late in the budget cycle last year, which didn't allow us enough time to get that input or get some of the other cities to approve or not approve the second co-responder. So this second co-responder, we have Merriam and Mission agreed that we would allow, even if we were footing the bill for 2022, we would still allow that co-responder to operate in the other cities. But since the grant funds cover it, we've maintained that. And then in 2023, we'll have to reevaluate that for 2023, depending on which cities still participate with the second corresponder and which don't.
Okay. And is there any challenge? I mean, I'm just curious about the program, if there's any challenges with one co-responder that can't take a call, say those other cities don't want to join in, one co-responder that can't respond to any of those other cities because their cities aren't interested in getting a second, which I don't think that would be the case. But I
Right.
also don't feel like it would be fair for us to be footing the bill for Mission Hills.
Right. So that's the challenge, is what's the right thing to do and how we do it. I don't think we'll have that issue.
Sure.
But, some of those very small cities, a couple $100 extra a year is a lot. And so I think we'll have buy-in, but we just have to get there and make sure that everybody's on board.
Well, thank you, Chief. This is such an important program, and let us know if you continue to feel like, this is enough or isn't enough, or, any of the deliverables. I think is really helpful for us to be able to share with our constituents. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, Chief.
Hi.
Just for clarification, the cities are based on population, right? So this is prorated in accordance with the population of each city. I believe that Westwood covers, from a police point of view, or law enforcement, they cover both Westwood Hills and Mission Woods. Is that correct? They're contracted
Yes.
to do the administration and policing for those two cities
Yes.
in addition. So that total is basically their pro rata based on their population.
Correct.
It does not include Mission Hills.
No, it does not. It's Mission. The current cities are Merriam, Mission, Roland Park, Fairway, Westwood, Westwood Hills, and Mission Woods.
Thank you.
Chief, the co-responder will be housed at Johnson County Mental Health, or?
No, currently the plan is for one of them to be housed in Mission and one of them to be housed in Merriam.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions?
Madam Chair, I recommend that we take this to non-consent.
Okay. Everybody in agreement?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dan. Okay, the next two items actually are from Brian Scott. And the first is the laptop replacement information.
Okay, you all, probably a lot of you know, we've been pretty diligent about updating our technology infrastructure over the last few years. And all that's outlined in the staff report. We've gotten really aggressive about replacing equipment in a timely manner. And so we built in a replacement schedule to the budget every year. For 2022, we're scheduled for replacement of 17 laptops. We went out and got bids from 4 different companies. 3 of them are resuppliers. One is the actual manufacturer that we buy laptops from. And they came in with a bid considerably lower. So it's Dell Direct with a bid for all 17 laptops, 34 monitors, because most users want to have 2 monitors, and then like a docking station to kind of tie all of it together and tie it into the network. All of that equipment was a grand total of $22,967. So staff recommends purchasing said equipment from Dell Direct for that amount.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Brian?
Recommend we take this to consent.
Thank you. The 17 laptops you're referring to include what administration, what departments?
There's one in administration, there's several in the police department, Parks and Rec.
Okay, so they're
So,
dispersed
They're
throughout.
dispersed throughout, and they're pretty much, we're trying to get it so anybody that's sitting behind a desk
Mhm.
has a desktop, but Right now, it's primarily department directors, mid-managers, folks that might go out in the field on occasion. And that's almost like mandatory now, department directors and mid-managers, because the idea is to take this to a meeting.
Right.
If there's an inclement weather, or God forbid, we have another mask mandate, we have to stay home again with
Right.
COVID, we can take our equipment, and go home and work.
Perfect.
So,
Thanks, Brian. Recommendation to take this. Sorry about that. Okay, the last item for Brian Scott is the replacement for the police department's firewall.
Okay, again, along the lines of being diligent about replacing our equipment on an annual basis, we bought a firewall server for the police department in 2017. And I'll just kind of stop there for a minute and describe what a firewall is. So we are essentially an appendage of Johnson County's computer network. And we have two sides to our network. We have a city side and a police department side. And we have a firewall that separates those two. So any traffic that comes into the city will hit that city server first. Then it has to go through the firewall to get to the police department. So that firewall acts like a gatekeeper, really monitoring the traffic that comes in and out from the police department. And that's because what the police department has is very secure, sensitive information, lots of crime photographs, lots of information with people's, personal information on there and so forth, suspects and whatnot. And so all of that's very secured, and it has to be that way under the requirements of the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. Every year they come in and do an audit of the police department operations, and those are some of the things they look for. That's a lot of the reason why we went to Office 365 last year, was for that extra security. So with that said, we were planning to replace our firewall server in 2023. However, DTI is actually replacing all the firewall servers and all the police departments that they support in Northeast Johnson County. So they're just the departments that Dan just mentioned, Prairie Village, Westwood, Roland Park. They're going through and systematically replacing all those firewalls, and they're updating that with newer equipment, newer software that's more advanced than what we have right now. So with that said, we just kind of want to move it up in the schedule this year and get it replaced this year. And they're going to use an outside third-party firm called TGS, and TGS provided a quote for their services. And the grand total was $25,710.48. So we asked for approval of that.
Great. Any comments on this?
Recommend we take this to consent.
Perfect. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate
you.
it. Next, we move into discussion items, and we don't have any items tonight. So we'll move into department updates, and that would go back to Brian. Brian, do you have any updates for Finance and Administration Committee? Okay. It is now 7:40. No further discussion at hand, and that concludes the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. Again, this video will be made public on our website at missionks.org. Thank you for your attendance.